Hello, everybody. I'm Patrícia Salvaia. I'm a research master's student at the Faculty of Religion at the University of Groningen. And today I'm here interviewing Professor Todd Weir and Arjen Barel. We are going to talk about some publications, the Creative and Inclusive Heritage Education books. We have a handbook and an activity book. And we're also going to talk about its connection to the project MIRETAGE. So first, I would like to start asking Professor Todd Weir to introduce himself and talk a little bit about the project.
Yeah, thanks, Patricia. As you just mentioned, we've produced recently two handbooks, or one handbook and one activity book, which are helping people use heritage to do teaching. And our aim is really to reach educators of all sorts. It could be high school teachers, museum curators, adult educators. We've put together a kind of introduction to heritage for these teachers. We go into sort of specific issues that members of our group saw and how they dealt with them. And then the activity book has a number of exercises that teachers can use to bring heritage into the classroom. And these are all available now, open access. And at the end of the interview, we'll give some information about how to reach these. This project comes out of our Center for Religion and Heritage at the University of Groningen. We've been involved with partners for the last 5 years, trying to come up with ways of bringing our knowledge of heritage into the wider public. And we've discovered this really through working with the Storytelling Center in Amsterdam and partners in Spain and in France and in Hungary. And together we created these activity books. So Arjen Barel, who we'll talk to in a moment, helped write that activity book. And he's also now involved with me and our partners in a new project, which is looking specifically at issues around minority heritage, because in Europe, when people think of heritage, they usually think of the dominant national heritage, castles, kings, the big churches. And it's been somewhat difficult to bring smaller groups, also some maybe more newly arrived, into the discussions about heritage. So this presents a particular challenge in the classroom and in public more generally, when you try to make heritage something that's inclusive rather than exclusive. So we're used to many politicians saying heritage is about, for instance, in Europe, it's about Christian heritage, it's about Dutch national heritage, the Golden Age, Amsterdam in the 17th century. That's not a very inclusive picture of Dutch heritage, for example, or of European heritage. So we're trying to find ways to address this. And we came up with a project that focuses on trail making with members of minority communities. And it's been a very exciting 2-3 years now, developing methods around trails. And Arjen Barel is the sort of key person in the Netherlands who we're working with on this project.
So Arjen, what can you tell us about yourself and how you're involved in this project?
Well, I'm Arjen Barel. I'm the director of Storytelling Center and the founder, by the way. And Storytelling Center, just to sum it up shortly, we are dealing with the sharing of stories, both artistically, so we make performances and we used to have a festival, and socially engaged. So we use storytelling for personal growth, but also to make social impact. And I think what we do here has to do with the latter, so making social impact. For us, we strongly believe that a stable society, an equal society, is a society where every story, where every voice is heard. But on the other hand, just like Todd indicated already, we see that a lot of voices are underrepresented. And it's very interesting from a narrative point of view, and that's our expertise. We approach everything from a narrative point of view. So what are the stories that are allowed to be told, which stories are not allowed to be told or heard, and it's a very complex system, of course, and that's also the interesting thing in such a project. So I think this already makes clear a bit what our involvement in these projects are. Indeed, thinking about how narratives work, how important narratives are. I think sometimes it's overlooked how important they are for groups and even for individuals. We so often are working with groups who have the feeling that their narrative may not exist or is less than the dominant narrative. And so we also see the effects it has on a group, and it has on their participation in society. And I mean, as I strongly believe, a society you build together, and you need all groups, all individuals to be part of it, but you also have to allow people to be part of it. And I mean, that's the point where we are working on. And yeah, cultural heritage, as Todd also already indicated, it's often seen as buildings, old buildings, castles, kings, knights, whatever. And it's so much more. The UNESCO Faro Convention pointed out that stories are also part of heritage. And I think that's very important to stress that and to work with that, and also to change the narrative. And also to change the narrative about castles, because yeah, maybe a castle has a certain history, but on the other hand, people who are walking alongside the castle right now also have a relation with that castle, also have a story about that castle, and that story can come next to the historical, and not in place of, but next to, and then you enrich also the cultural heritage, and you take care that people can feel connected to that part of cultural heritage, which is maybe in their neighborhood, or they see it when they're on holidays. That doesn't matter, but it's good that people connect to their environment.
Nice. And how did you come up with the idea of the trail activity?
Well, first of all, we in the previous project Todd was already talking about, we also created a trail, and it was in the east of Amsterdam. And it was about Muslim heritage in the east of Amsterdam. And that was also slightly the start of the new project. We think, trails are a good way to invite people into a series of stories. And a trail can be long, can be short, can be in a museum, can be in the public space, can be everywhere. And but it is a nice way to introduce people into also historical facts, but also into personal stories. But I think all personal stories we involve should also tell a bigger story. It's never only the individual story. Yeah? It's always, and I think that the more specific the story is, the more universal the value of it is. So that's why I think trails are a very good way of bringing the history under attention, but also the current day, the contemporary history, or what drives people nowadays. And when we started this project, at a certain point we thought, let's do it in Almere. The city, which is probably the newest city in the Netherlands, and people think, cultural heritage in Almere. So it brings a sort of, I say that in their heads of, what? And then working with people and showing them that even if a city is only 50 years old, there is already cultural heritage, and I love that. And yeah, it's a bit of. Yeah, also showing people that it is not only about old things, it is also about contemporary dynamics.
Yeah, I'm curious about what people are involved in this project, in the trails. What's the public, and who are the educators?
Yeah. So in Almere, we focus on Muslim heritage. So the group who is involved in creating the trail are people with a Muslim background. And the nice thing is that when you say a Muslim background, it's also not one group. Certainly not in Almere, because you have people from Turkey, you have people from Morocco, you have people from a lot of other Arabic countries, but you also have people from Pakistan, you have people from Indonesia, you have people from Suriname. So it's a mixed community in itself, and we try to also show this mixture of this community. And of course, you have people who really strongly believe, people who believe less, but are more culturally Muslim. We want to include all these groups. So they are the groups we involved in creating the trails. The audience, we don't know yet because we still have to launch the web app and the exhibition, but we truly hope that the audience will be broad and not only people with a Muslim background, but people from Almere in general, because this is the goal, the objective of this project is really to show that Almere, the narrative of Almere was not only built by white male people, but by all the people who are living there. And there was always a Muslim presence in Almere from the start. That's also the uniqueness of this young city. From the start, there were Muslims there. So it's the only city in the Netherlands where the Muslim presence was there from the start. So we hope to have a broad audience, and this adult learning, which is a very important aspect in this. We already trained some people a bit in how to make audio files, how to make the stories, how to collect the stories, and how to record them, and how to publish them. And that's also the second step. So after the launch, we really give it to the community. And the adult learners can really, using also the tools we developed, can keep on filling the app with new stories, new insights, and that's really what we want. And that's the adult learning aspect, which is really, really important because it's their app. Mm-hmm. Okay, we initiated it a bit because of the project, and sometimes you have to initiate it, but I don't want to work top down. No, I want to work bottom up. I want to give it to the community and say, hey, here it is. We prepared some things for you, and now it's up to you to keep on filling it and to keep on sharing your story and be proud of your story and your presence in Almere.
Is my understanding correct that this is like a pilot project, and then it will be tailored and reproduced to other communities?
Yes, hopefully yes. So first of all, we hope that in Almere it will continue, and it would be so great if other communities around the Netherlands, but maybe even abroad, would think, hey, this is interesting, and we also want to share our story, and then they can use the tools we created for that. That's the adult learning aspect in it. We created tools for adult learners, adult educators and adult learners, and to reproduce what we now did in Almere.
Nice. And the activity book, how do you use the activity book in this project, or is it something even broader?
Well, of course, we use it as it's not an official continuation, but it's in line with the previous project. And what we also developed for the activity book are some exercises, some activities that are really about meaning making around cultural heritage. So you have a piece of cultural heritage, a castle, or an immaterial, intangible cultural heritage. And we developed, for example, in the handbook, in the handbook, some exercises how to get current day meaning out of something which might be very old. Doesn't have to be necessarily very old, but so how do you do that? And we use narrative techniques for that. Those techniques we also implemented in the labs we did for this Almere project. So yes, we used a lot of activities from the handbook also now in the new project, and they will also be in the guidelines or the handbook we are creating for the new project, so that adult educators and adult learners can use them in the future.
Nice. Todd, I'm looking at you, and I don't know if there is something else you'd like to mention about the activity book and the handbook that we haven't touched yet.
Well, I was just going to say something else, if I might, which is, Patrícia, you are part of our MA program in Heritage and Religion. And what Arjen's describing about meaning making and about the use of creative means for learning is something that we also try to bring into the MA. So you took part in our meetings in Belgium as part of this project. And this year's group of MA students went on a trip to Appingedam, which is a village or a small city in eastern Groningen province, where there's a large Moluccan community, which are a minority community from Indonesia originally. And it was working on this topic of minority heritage and trails and so on. So we really bring also the students into the process. And they've actually been helping us with writing guidelines and thinking through the trails. They gave feedback on the Almere project for the recordings, for what Arjen and Muslim Archive are working on. So this is just to indicate this whole spectrum of educational work that we're doing. It goes all the way up to our MA, right? So it goes all the way from doing adult education with minority communities in a local setting up to university education. And I think that for me, that's what's exciting about the heritage topic, because it really is something that has become a site of meaning making in the best sense, right? That people have to use heritage to create meaningful identities, discussions, insights, and that should happen all over society, and nobody's excluded. I suppose that's the point, right? And that's what Arjen was referring to, this convention from 20 years ago at the European level, Council of Europe, states explicitly that everybody has a right to be involved in their own heritage. And for people to be involved in their heritage, it means really coming up with their own narratives, their own stories, making meaning of their own past or the past of their community. And that's, I think, what all these projects are about. And the handbooks are also trying to do this. So, again, I would recommend them to educators, because there are icebreakers, there are all sorts of games. There are a lot of fun. There's a lot of fun in this project and a lot of fun in these activity books and in the handbook. So I hope that it will encourage people to go out and have a look.
Nice. And
can I contribute something to this? I think sometimes people working in cultural heritage are a bit afraid of when you're working in this way. Yeah, but it's also about the history. But the fun fact, I think, is that by doing it this way, people are also more interested in the history. And so it's not only about the personal stories, but when you feel attached to something, you want to know more. And then you also dive into the historical facts. So it's not next to each other. No, it's integrated. And I think this kind of projects will also take care that people appreciate cultural heritage way more, and also the old stories. And I personally, but it's a personal thinking, I personally think that it's also important, because we also need to know our roots. And even if you're from somewhere else, it's also good to know a little about the roots of the place you are. In placemaking, it's important, because when you know the roots, you feel attached to the place, because then all of a sudden it also becomes part of your identity. And so it's a complex dynamic, but I think that I would like to stress that it's also about historic facts and the personal stories.
Nice. And I think, Todd, you have touched something important. As a student, before I chose University of Groningen, I was watching YouTube videos because I wanted to know where I was going to study. And one of the things that I like the most is that we are talking about heritage and religion, but we're not talking about old stuff. It's very lively. We are very stimulated And as Arjen is showing, there's a lot of technology involved. So I think it's a very good program for us to connect past and present and future, because we are also here building the future, right?
Absolutely.
Those are great final words, Patrícia. I think.
Thank you. So I think, I don't know if there's anything else you would like to address. Otherwise, I would ask Todd to talk about where we can find these books.
Sure. So the handbook and the activity book are available open access, which means you can just go online, follow a link. Maybe we can put it in this at the end of this conversation. They're available to everyone everywhere. It's a nice format, interactive format, so that people can use it in a very easy way. The MIRETAGE project also has a website. We're also producing teaching materials, so eventually those will also be published. But you can have a look at the website. And regarding the MA program, you can also, of course, look us up in the University of Groningen.
Okay. And Arjen, I would like for you to make the final invitation for people to engage with heritage, and the floor is yours.
Yeah, what can I say? Please engage with heritage. Now, most important, heritage is yours. I think a lot of people have a sort of feeling that heritage is only heritage when it's authorized, and only see it as something from the past, etc. And I really hope that next to bringing some underrepresented voices to the front with this kind of projects, that also people start seeing heritage in a way broader context, and that they may engage with heritage, and that heritage is also it's everybody's heritage, and it doesn't matter if your engagement is a little different because you have another feeling with it than maybe the historical view. Maybe a short example from the previous project. We were working in Groningen, and there is in Friesland, and in the Frisian Museum there's the sword of Grote Pier. I don't know how to translate it, and that's really a symbol for Frisia. And we were working with people who just arrived to the country, status holders, and we challenged them to also connect with that sword. And of course, they don't have a Frisian history, but they could connect it with it because it's also a symbol of liberation. And for someone from Syria, it was also a strong symbol. And when you have that connection, then you also start to appreciate. And of course, then you also tell, yeah, and this was of a Frisian man. But then they are connected, and when the connection is not there, they just walk through the museum and they think, okay, well, this is a piece of old iron. And no, make that connection by sharing stories and by allowing people to make their own stories with it. And I think that's very important. So I truly hope that also this project will contribute something to that.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you.